This is A Guide to the Hobbit, or To IMAX and Back Again. Poor Peter Jackson, a man who makes The Lord of the Rings, decides that he wants to see The Hobbit made into a film, but doesn't want to direct it himself. So he enlists Pan's Labyrinth director Guillermo del Toro to direct it instead. But during pre-production, as all of the pieces are falling into place, del Toro drops out due to scheduling conflicts, and Jackson, not wanting to see the fate of Middle-earth crumble in the hands of somebody unworthy, steps back into the director's chair. Now, fanboys everywhere rejoiced, but of course, dark forces are lurking nearby. At the same time, in a galaxy not too far away, a gentleman named George Lucas, who had previously brought us another epic action-adventure trilogy, plots to turn the rights to the Star Wars saga over to the folks at Disney. For the last few decades, Lucas had been brutally chastised by fanboys and movie critics alike for what they considered to be a crap slew of Star Wars prequels, and for the minor tweaks that he made to the original Holy trilogy. But I think Lucas knew that if he removed himself from any sort of Star Wars involvement, fanboys and movie critics, who constantly need to feed on the essence of filmmaker to survive, would redirect their critical bloodlust elsewhere. And what poor soul is just waiting in the wings? In the wrong place at the wrong time? Why, it's Peter Jackson. So while Lucas is secretly plotting to abandon his Star Wars saga, Jackson decides that if he's gonna spend the next decade revisiting the familiar territory of Middle-earth, he might as well take the art of filmmaking to unfamiliar territory. And Peter Jackson fatefully decides to shoot The Hobbit and its sequels in 48 frames per second. That means that the camera that they're shooting with is taking 48 individual pictures per second as opposed to the standard 24. This will presumably make the film look crisper and cleaner, and make the action in the film just move more seamlessly, just like you'd witness in real life. So Jackson goes ahead and shoots this movie in a way that none of us have ever seen. But he releases some unfinished footage in Comic-Con to mixed reviews. Fanboys and critics begin to squawk. Lucas sees an opening and makes a run for it. He sells Star Wars to Disney, and the torch is passed. Over the last few months, I've read an overwhelming amount of anxiety-laden articles about The Hobbit, in which people seem to dread going to see a movie that they'd previously been so excited was even gonna get made. And this is a fascinating phenomenon to me. Don't stress yourself out about it. Don't give yourself an aneurysm anticipating a movie. A movie like The Hobbit is there for our enjoyment. Not so that you can get so disappointed by a movie before you even see it that only the greatest movie in the world could elevate your mood enough so that you could actually sit there and enjoy it all the way through. If you do that, all you're gonna do is go into the movie looking for the flaws to see if the rumors were true. And if you do that, you're gonna be so caught up in the flaws that you'll fail to see what's great about it. And if you're so worried about what the movie's gonna look like shot in 48 frames per second, guess what? You don't have to see it in 48 frames per second. In order for the 48 frames per second print of the movie to be screened, a movie theater must have a digital projector that is 48 frames per second compatible. And a lot of movie theaters don't have these yet. I mean, I saw The Hobbit in IMAX, and even they didn't have the 48 frames per second print yet. So you can still see it in that 24 frames per second format that you're used to. Now, for those of you interested in how the 48 frames per second cut looks, I will get back to you. I plan on seeing it sometime later in the week. But in the meantime, I can at least tell you that The Hobbit is well worth seeing if you're a Lord of the Rings fan. It's a lot of fun, the special effects are outstanding, the performances are great as always, and this movie is easily as rewatchable as The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, and more rewatchable than The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King. I would even go as far as to say that The Hobbit is more rewatchable than uber hits from earlier this year, The Avengers and Skyfall. Now look, if you weren't crazy about the first 3 Lord of the Rings films, I can't promise that this one's gonna satisfy you. And it's certainly not gonna satisfy you if you go in there and spend the whole time looking for its flaws. But if you're a fan of Middle-earth, take a deep breath, exit out of your web browser, and go and give The Hobbit the chance that both you and Peter Jackson deserve.